Hey y'all, welcome back to my channel. Today we have a little different scenery. I am working from home today, so I wanted to make you all a video. And this is our last video of the decimal series of our Math Madness videos. So today we are reaching that elementary standard again as well today, and we are going to compare and order decimals. Now 6th grade does compare and order decimals, but it throws in fractions too and percent sometimes. So this is a 6th grade standard, or connects with the 6th grade standard too. So this can help a lot of different grade levels. So I hope this helps you. Don't forget that I can do any content with you. I have access to a social studies teacher, a language arts teacher, a art teacher, and I can teach math and science. So don't forget that I do make a mistake for my students to identify for extra credit. Teachers, feel free to use this in your classroom or for your online classes to review and help those students and those parents work through their work at home. So let's get started. Okay, we are comparing and ordering decimals. Okay, so when you are ordering decimals, line up your decimals vertically, and that just means top to bottom. I always like to use that vertically because they will see those vocabulary words on tests and things. But then you're going to add zeros if you need to. Some people can compare them without adding those zeros, but a lot of my students like to make all of the numbers have the same amount of digits, and so adding those zeros can help with that. Then you're going to look left to right to compare your numbers. So if they want it least to greatest, then you're going to list your numbers as they would fall on a number line from right to left. So you want the smaller numbers to the bigger numbers. Then if they want greatest to least, you're going to list your numbers as they would fall on the number line from left to right, so big numbers to small numbers. Okay, so when you are comparing, because the questions will say, compare these two numbers, you're going to line up your decimals vertically so that the place values line up, and this is just to help you compare those numbers a little bit easier. You can do it without listing them or lining them up vertically, but a lot of my students like this, so that's the way I'm going to be using that today. Then you're going to use an inequality sign to compare. I always tell my students, if it says compare, think inequality sign. So we have less than, and that's what a less than sign looks like. And then we have greater than, and that's what a greater than sign looks like. And don't forget, another inequality sign is an equal sign. And that's okay to use equal signs sometimes. Okay, so here we have order from least to greatest. So we're going to line these up with our decimals. We're just going to rewrite them. Okay, so notice that a lot of these digits, they are little blank spots. That's where I would add zeros, or my students would add zeros to make them all have the same amount of digits. And so we do want least to greatest, so we want smallest to biggest number. Now, I tell my students, you can draw lines between these numbers so you know what numbers you're comparing. So let's first look left to right. So we want the smallest. So all three of these have zeros. So that means we're going to look at these three digits, and we have 3, 3, and 0. Now these two are the same, but we want the least. So even though this one would have more digits compared to this one, it has a 0 in the 10th place, which makes it the least. So another thing that I tell my students, remember, when you are writing your answers, if you added zeros to those numbers, put them in their original form. So how they are wrote in the question. And I had a student this year that mentioned, hey, let's put a star beside the ones that we add zeros to or that we change to make them the same. And that really worked with the percents and the fractions too. So I really liked that strategy, putting that star there, knowing that, hey, those aren't in original form. Make sure you put them in original form. So I'm just going to draw a line through that one because we already used it. So then we still need the next one. Now, we're still looking at these two zeros. This one, the tenths place, both have the same number, so I'm going to have to go to the hundredths place. And then I have 0 and 5. So which one would you hit on a number line first if you were going from left to right? That would be 0. So I know that my next number would be 305 thousandths. And remember, when you're ordering them, you separate them with commas. So I used this one. Now the next two that I have, one starts with 0, one starts with 3. So automatically that 0 is going to go first. And we have a star beside of it, which means, hey, it's not in original form. So I'm going to have to look up here. Remember, it was just 35 hundredths. It wasn't 350 thousandths. So I'm going to write it without that 0. I used that one. So the only number I have left is the 3 and 245 thousandths. Okay, just like anything that we have done with decimals, you can make your life easier if you use a lined sheet of paper. So you can line up your decimals vertically using the lines, which can make it easier to separate and keep everything in line with each other and really organized. That is where a lot of my students make those simple mistakes, is when they're lining them up. Sorry guys, the wind's blowing a little bit. I hope this doesn't do anything to the sound for y'all. But it's too pretty not to be outside today, and Lacey's napping right now, so I kind of have to be outside to film this. Okay, so using those lines really help to keep organized, and like I was saying, that a lot of my students make those mistakes when they're lining them up and they're not keeping their work organized. So this one, we want greatest to least, so we want those larger numbers first. I don't really have to draw my lines here because those lines on your lined paper already separate it for you, so it even makes it even more organized and easier to see without those lines drawn between them. So we are going to look at our number all the way to the left first. We want the biggest number first. All of them have a 1, so we need to go to this next one. So then we have 2, 2, 1, 1, and 2. So we need to be looking at those 2's first. Now, so that means I'm going to look at these 3 first. Well, I'm going to have to go to the hundredths place to look for that biggest number. So I have 4, 6, 2, and 2. So that means that 6 is going to go first because it is we want greatest to least. So we want 12 and 65 hundredths first. And I'm just going to mark it out because we already used it. So we're still looking at these 2 2's. We're going to have to go to the right, and we have 4 and 2. Sorry guys, I think that first time I said 2 here first, but oh well, we're all not perfect. So, but we have 4 and 2. Which one is greater? Well, 4 is greater. So even though this one has more digits, this one's still greater than that one because we always compare left to right in the place values. So my next greatest number is 12 and 45 hundredths, and I'm going to mark it out because we used it. So the only one left to use will be this last number that starts with a 12. Okay, so now we're looking at these two. Both of them have a 1 in the tens and the ones place, so we're looking at the the tenths place. So we're looking at 5 and 2. So 5 is greater than 2, which means that 11 and 58 hundredths will go before the 11 and 24 hundredths. Just think of money. I would rather have $11.58 compared to $11.24. Might mean I can buy another piece of gum. So just think of decimals as money, especially if they only have 2 decimal places behind them. That really helps to think of money. So $12.65 is definitely greater than $11.24. So let's look at the next questions. Now we're comparing. Okay, so we can line up our numbers just like we did with ordering. So both of these numbers have the same whole number. They both are 102, but then we have to look at the tenths place to decide which one is greater or bigger. So I know that 3 is greater than 0, even though this one has more digits, that 3 is greater. So think of it as $102.35 compared to $102.03. That's definitely going to be greater. So since it is first, I'm going to have to use a greater than sign. So now, here I have 23 and 124 thousandths and 23 and 2 tenths. Now here's where my students really like to add those zeros, and that's okay. So they both have the same tens number, they both have the same ones number. The tenths place is where it starts changing. So we have 1 tenth and we have 2 tenths. Well, 2 tenths is definitely greater, so that means even though this one has more digits, this one is greater than. So I would have to use the less than sign. So you read it left to right. 23 and 124 thousandths is less than 23 and 2 tenths. Last example. So we have 1 and 24 thousandths and 1 and 2 hundredths. So this one starts with a 1. They both have 1s. They both have 0s. They both have 2s. And so I can add a 0 there. And which one's greater, 4 or 0? Well, 4. So I would use a greater than sign. So this one we have 3 and 4 tenths and 3 and 40 hundredths. Well, I'd rather have 40 than 4, wouldn't you? So 3 and 4 tenths is less than 3 and 40 hundredths.
Thank you all for watching. I hope that this helped you while you all are working at home. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel so that you can be updated whenever I upload new math videos. So now that we have finished the decimal series, we're going to move on to a geometry series. So I hope this will help you all at home. Don't forget to leave a comment of something that you all would need help with or want to see a little mini lesson with. But I hope you all are staying safe and healthy, and we will see you next time. Bye, y'all.